Okay, let's unpack this. Trying to make sense of the digital landscape, e-marketing, how businesses actually connect and thrive online. Well, there's just an absolute ocean of information out there, isn't there? It can feel completely overwhelming.
It really can, yeah. You see so many different approaches, different terms flying around, and it's hard to know what the fundamental building blocks are or how they really differ from, the old ways of doing business.
Exactly. That's why I was so drawn to the source we're looking at today. It doesn't just throw more information at you. It actually offers a framework, a specific lens to sort of cut through some of that complexity. And understand the core characteristics that really set e-marketing apart. It calls them the 6 I's.
Yes, and the source presents these 6 I's not just as definitions you need to memorize, but as the key characteristics that potentially offer enhanced results compared to traditional marketing approaches.
And here's where it gets really interesting. And frankly, it's the crucial takeaway from our source, I think. This deep dive isn't just about defining these terms. I mean, you could probably find a list online pretty easily, right?
Sure.
The strategic value, the thing that helps you think like a business leader or analyst, comes from understanding how to apply these characteristics based on the specific task or the problem you're facing.
It's really the difference between knowing what a tool is and knowing how and when to use it effectively. In a given situation.
Precisely. So our mission today is to first quickly lay out these 6 I's, understand what makes them different, and then leaning heavily on the practical examples from our source, see how this understanding moves from just definition to actual strategic application.
Right. How you go from just knowing the list to actually solving the problem.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's start with the framework itself. The source identifies these 6 characteristics as the differentiators for e-marketing. The first one is intelligence.
Intelligence. Okay. So not just general market research, but something much more granular.
Much more. Yeah. What's powerful here, as the source explains, is the ability to gather incredibly detailed, often real-time information on individual customer behavior.
Wow.
We're talking about things like tracking their click patterns, seeing exactly how long they spend on a certain page, where they navigate from, or even precisely the point they, lose interest and leave.
Which you just couldn't do with a traditional magazine ad or a billboard, could you? You'd know general demographics, maybe how many copies were sold, but absolutely zero insight into individual engagement.
Exactly. Zero. And the real insight here, the kind of nugget our source hints at, is how this detailed data can reveal things you might not expect.
Like what?
Like realizing customers consistently drop off on the mobile site after the 3rd scroll, perhaps, or that users who search for budget travel spend twice as long looking at review sections. That's intelligence you can act on.
Okay, that makes sense. That detailed, actionable data sounds like it feeds directly into the second I's, which is individualization.
It does, yeah. Because you have that specific intelligence on individual preferences and behaviors, you can tailor the marketing experience directly to that person.
So customized website homepages.
Right, or product recommendations based on past views, ads that seem to follow your browsing history. It makes the communication just far more relevant.
It shifts from broadcasting a general message to a whole segment, which is the traditional approach, to having something closer to a one-on-one conversation with a potential customer.
Precisely. And the consequence of that, which is pretty significant, can be things like dramatically higher click-through rates or conversion rates because the message feels like it was made just for you. It's a much more efficient way to spend your marketing budget, really.
Right. Okay, next up is integration. What kind of linking are we talking about here? Is it just technical?
Well, the source points to the seamless linking of activities within a business and even between different businesses. Think about that simple click here to buy button. It takes you instantly from seeing a product to adding it to your cart, maybe suggesting accessories right there on the product page too.
So you don't have to see an ad, then remember to go to a different website, find the product, then figure out how to buy it. Removes the friction.
Right. It removes steps and friction. And as the source notes, it can extend to linking businesses like booking a discounted car rental directly through the airline's website after you've booked your flight. Compared to traditional marketing where you saw an ad, maybe called a number, then had to physically go somewhere to buy. This integration streamlines the path to purchase significantly.
Though I wonder, doesn't linking too many things also risk overwhelming a customer sometimes?
That's a fair point. It's not always a perfect frictionless win. There's definitely a balance to strike there.
Okay, how about interactivity? This feels pretty fundamental to the web, doesn't it?
It really changes the dynamic, yeah. Instead of traditional push marketing, where a message is just broadcast at you, e-marketing is often pull. The customer is actively participating.
How so?
By clicking links, typing search terms, engaging with chatbots or content, they're essentially pulling the information they need towards them.
So they're more in control of the experience, actively seeking solutions, rather than just passively receiving messages.
Exactly. They are actively seeking a solution to their requirement, whatever that might be. And the marketing facilitates that search process. And this interactivity, interestingly, is a rich source of that initial intelligence we discussed.
The feedback loop.
Precisely. How they phrase their searches, what links they click on, what questions they ask the chatbot, it all feeds back into understanding the customer better.
Okay. The fifth is independence of location. This seems like, well, the most obvious benefit of the internet global reach.
It is probably the most apparent one, yes. E-marketing allows businesses to reach customers across geographical borders without needing a physical presence in every single location. And for digital products like software or online courses, delivery is basically instant and global.
But the source adds a practical note here, right? It's not just a completely free pass to sell absolutely anything anywhere.
Absolutely. The source is careful to point out that the suitability still depends heavily on the product itself.
Like physical goods.
Exactly. Selling large, heavy physical goods globally might still be constrained by expensive shipping logistics or complex local regulations, even if the marketing message can reach anywhere easily.
Right.
Traditional marketing, while it could reach globally via mass media, often it relied on pretty expensive local campaigns and sales teams to actually convert interest into sales in different regions. E-marketing removes some of that, but not necessarily all the logistical hurdles for physical products.
Got it. And finally, the sixth, industry structure. How does e-marketing shake things up there?
This is where the source highlights the potential for real disruption. E-marketing can enable something called disintermediation.
Disintermediation, which means what exactly in simple terms?
It means cutting out the intermediaries. The wholesalers, the retailers, the distributors that traditionally sit between the manufacturer and the end consumer. E-marketing allows a manufacturer to potentially sell directly to you, the customer. It also facilitates the growth of completely new structures like consumer-to-consumer, C2C marketplaces. Think eBay or Etsy, where individuals sell directly to other individuals.
So it allows for completely new business models that essentially bypass the established chain.
Precisely. Whereas traditional marketing largely operates within and often reinforces those existing distribution chains, e-marketing provides the technical capability to create alternative, often much shorter, routes to market.
Okay, so we have the 6 I's. Intelligence, individualization, integration, interactivity, independence of location, and industry structure. They're the distinct characteristics, the flavors that make e-marketing different.
Right. Those are the core concepts. But as the source makes abundantly clear, just rattling off those definitions, well, that's step one. It's necessary groundwork, definitely. But it's not the strategic core, not by a long shot.
And this is the part the source really emphasizes, that understanding the context of the task you're trying to achieve is absolutely everything.
Exactly. In the real world of business problems, you aren't usually asked to just list the 6 I's, are you? You're asked to solve a problem, achieve a goal, evaluate a situation, and how you apply or even think about these I's depends entirely on that specific context.
The source basically says you wouldn't get many marks just for definitions. It's all about the application.
It's about demonstrating, when and how these characteristics are relevant to the specific challenge at hand. It's critical thinking applied to the framework.
To make this concrete, the source walks us through 3 pretty distinct example tasks. Let's look at the first one. Explain how e-marketing may be used to grow market share for ABC company.
Okay, so the context here is simple enough. Grow market share for one specific company. It's a broad how question, focused on a single business goal.
How does the source suggest approaching this then, given that specific goal? Does it say, list the relevant I's?
Well, what's fascinating is how the source shows you don't necessarily structure your answer using the I's as main headings at all.
Oh, really?
Instead, you focus on the practical actions enabled by e-marketing. For instance, using features like website search functions and chatbots, which, relates to interactivity to understand exactly what customers are looking for and answering their questions instantly.
Okay, so you identify the tool or the action first, not the outcome.
Yes, the action.
Yeah.
And then you immediately connect that action back to the stated goal, growing market share. The source gives 2 main paths here. First, that direct interaction, combined with seamless integration like BUY and now W links, allows immediate purchase right when the customer's interest is highest.
Capture the moment.
Exactly. This converts intent into actual sales, directly increasing market share. Simple as that.
Okay, converting that moment of interest into a transaction. And the second path.
Second, continuously analyzing the data from those searches and interactions. That's our intelligence at work, right?
Yeah.
Gives you insights into what products customers really want, or maybe how to improve existing ones. Better products lead to enhanced sales and, you guessed it,
Growth in market share.
growth in market share.
So the I's interactivity, integration, intelligence, they're the underlying capabilities of the tools you're describing, but the answer structure is all about the actions and their impact on the goal, market share.
Precisely. The source notes the I's demonstrate your understanding of why these e-marketing tools are effective compared to traditional ones, but the core of the answer is the practical how and the resulting outcome.
Right.
It also points out that some I's, like say industry structure, might be completely irrelevant to a task focused solely on a single company's market share growth. No need to force it in.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, task 2 has a different focus.
Ah,
Evaluate the benefits of e-marketing in the introduction of the new business opportunity.
right. Now the context has shifted. We're evaluating benefits specifically for a single new initiative. The source shows that in this specific context, it might actually be appropriate to use some of the I's as headings.
Because the task specifically asks about benefits.
Exactly, because the task is explicitly about the benefits these characteristics enable. So the source suggests you could use, say, integration as a heading here.
How would that work?
You could talk about the benefit of integration, for instance, integrating the marketing for the new service onto your existing website. Maybe putting a link or even just a simple checkbox on the order confirmation page of your established product.
To inform existing customers about the new service.
Yes, exactly. So the benefit is leveraging your existing customer base and your existing website traffic. Free marketing, almost.
Okay.
But crucially, the task is to evaluate the benefits. You can't just list a potential action. The source immediately pushes you to ask the critical question. How much of a benefit will this really be? If the new business is completely unrelated to the existing one, say, you're primarily a bookseller launching a new service selling, car parts. The source notes that the actual conversion rate from existing book customers seeing that checkbox is likely to be very, very low.
So the evaluation is questioning the magnitude and the likelihood of the benefit, not just stating the possibility exists. It could be a tiny benefit.
Exactly. That critical assessment is key. So while some I's might serve as useful structural points here, the source reminds you not to feel forced to use all of them and always include that layer of realistic evaluation. Don't just assume integration equals massive benefit.
Very important distinction. Okay, completely different again for task 3. Evaluate this decision, developing an e-marketing strategy from a financial perspective.
And this is where the source really demonstrates that despite the question mentioning e-marketing strategy, the 6 I's themselves might barely feature or perhaps not feature at all in your answer.
Because the context is purely financial. It overrides the subject matter.
Precisely. The focus is entirely on the numbers, the financial viability. The source indicates the response would involve analyzing the financial data provided in the scenario, things like looking at investment appraisals, cost projections, and especially revenue forecasts.
What kind of financial analysis would the source expect here then, not discussing interactivity?
No. It provides an example related to revenue forecasts. You'd look at the projected revenue growth claimed for the e-marketing strategy. Maybe it shows a forecast of increasing revenue year on year over 5 years, perhaps even showing exponential growth in the later years.
Okay.
The source highlights that the evaluation involves critically questioning whether that projected growth is financially plausible or justified purely by implementing this e-marketing strategy.
How so?
Well, especially if it represents, say, a massive 25% increase in sales in year 5 within a market that overall is mature and only growing at maybe 2% a year, you'd need to ask, is the e-marketing strategy alone powerful enough to deliver that kind of outlier growth? Is it realistic?
So even though an e-marketing strategy is the central topic, the actual analysis required by the task is a hard-nosed financial critique of its projected outcomes, completely bypassing a discussion of the characteristics of the e-marketing itself.
Exactly. The source beautifully illustrates how the required action or the required perspective of the task completely dictates how you should approach the answer. Even if the subject matter keywords like e-marketing are the same across tasks, context is king.
So pulling all this together then,
Yeah.
what's the big picture takeaway for you, the listener, trying to navigate all this?
Well, the 6 I's, intelligence, individualization, integration, interactivity, independence of location, industry structure, they are an excellent conceptual tool, no doubt. They provide the fundamental understanding of what makes e-marketing distinct and potentially powerful compared to traditional methods. They give you the vocabulary to describe these new capabilities.
But the real skill, the strategic mindset this source champions, isn't just knowing the definitions off by heart. It's analyzing the specific business problem or goal you're given, and thinking critically about which of those ICE characteristics are actually relevant in this situation, how they can be practically applied using specific tools or actions, and maybe most importantly, how to evaluate their potential impact or feasibility within that exact context.
It moves you beyond just sort of possessing knowledge to actively applying it to solve real problems. And this ability, the skill of connecting a broad framework like the 6 I's to the nitty-gritty specifics of a real-world task, that's incredibly valuable for cutting through that information overload we talked about at the start and getting to the heart of strategic thinking.
It's about being strategic with the concepts themselves, not just about them. That application focus is the real power the source highlights.
A critical distinction, I think, for anyone trying to make sense of and succeed in the digital business world today.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, moving from understanding the core concepts to seeing how vital context is in their application, here's a final thought for you to consider, something building on the source's implicit point that technology and marketing practices are always moving targets. Given this constant evolution, how does that affect the very nature and the application of these 6 I's? Are totally new I's quietly emerging that capture completely new capabilities we haven't even named yet? Or are the existing ones just manifesting in ever more complex, integrated, and perhaps surprising ways?
Interesting question.
And maybe more practically, in a world where the tools themselves are constantly shifting beneath our feet, how does one stay not just informed, but truly adaptable and genuinely strategic in their thinking? Something to mull over.